We now have Ken Murphy of Southwest Minnesota State University. Off you go.
There we go. Welcome to my talk. I'm Ken Murphy from SMSU in Marshall, Minnesota, and happy to be here. And if you didn't get a chance to see it last night, we premiered the show's The Stargazer. And then some of you that have been around in the business a long time probably remember the show. It was a GLPA-produced show done in slide form. And I have taken that show, actually my students and I, and have converted it to full dome. So that's what my talk is about. So we'll get underway. Here's the opening Dome Master, the title slide of the Stargazer show. So let me talk a little bit about it and how it sort of came about at my school. I'm a Blender user. If you're not into Blender at all or don't know anything about it, it's worth checking out. It's a wonderful free resource. It's an open source 3D modeling and animation software program. And I've gotten into Blender due to Ron Proctor's help. He was, and Amy Jo, who's sitting up in the front here, they've taught a number of workshops at Weber State University, and I enrolled in 2 of them. And really found it beneficial, and it really got me off and running with Blender. So I created my own course at my home school, and it's just a 1-credit course, kind of a fun course, and I've used it to recruit students. So the Stargazer show is done by students and myself, and so students were given scenes to produce out of Stargazer, and basically we use the old slides as our storyboard. There was support by GLPA. There was a $4,000 grant involved to pay students and also buy a fast enough computer to render out 4K frames. So that was what we worked on. And we liked the show from the beginning. It has a solid script. It had a lot of features that I felt were worth bringing into the full dome environment. For example, it teaches the HR diagram, which is something that not too many shows touch on, but this show has a lot of good Stellar Evolution content. So anyway, the 2K version was completed early last summer, and then we took, with this new computer, over a 30-day period, rendered out 4K frames. I had the computer running day and night for 30 days. I was kind of curious how long it would really take, because if you ever do full dome rendering, it takes a long time to get those 4K frames out. And but Blender is very flexible. You can actually open up several Blender applications at the same time. So what I did is I actually had a very good graphics card, and you can have the graphics card do the rendering or have the CPU do the rendering, or both. I had it do both. And so that really sped up my rendering time. Anyway, so now it's available through GLPA. Dave will handle the distribution of the show, and so you can talk to him. It'll be posted. It's not yet, but it'll be posted on the GLPA website. We also lowered the price, so it's very affordable for planetariums, so something worth considering. And if you purchase the show, this is what's in the show kit. 2K frames or 4K frames will be available. There's also entrance and exit music if you like to play the show soundtrack while people are getting comfortable in their seats. There's also a show poster, which I'll show in just a minute, that you can customize. You can actually go in and edit with Photoshop and add in the text if you want to put show dates and times and so on. There are 2 versions of the show available. There's a closed caption version of the show and the regular version. Last night we premiered the closed caption version, and I don't know about you, but in my show library, it's the only show that I have that is closed caption, and every now and then I do get that request, so now I have something to sort of fill that gap. Also, something a little bit different maybe, if you don't like handling frames, not sure what to do with frames and how to make them into a movie, I will do that for you. And basically I'll need your specs for your projector, and this is only applies to single projectors, and so we can actually get them out to you through the internet. I don't even think we'll have to swap hard drives or anything to get that to you. So Here's our show poster. This is what it'll come with. This will be blanked out so you can add your own content there, but here is the pricing structure. The 4K frames, it'll run $150 for members, GLPA members, and then the 2K frames, $100. And if you just want the playable movie that I'll render out for you, it's $50. So there it is, pretty simple, pretty inexpensive. Here's the fancy-dancy computer that we rendered out the 4K frames on. Again, it took 30 days, which I thought it would take a little longer, but it worked really well. I told the computer store I wanted the best graphics card they had or could get, and they got me one. So here's my Blender animation team, 6 people that created scenes for Blender. The little guy on the upper right, that's my boy, that's Kyle. So he's really a very active Blender user. He likes the game engine. So that's what attracts a lot of people to Blender if you're into gaming. You can design your own games in Blender. Okay, so again, I took Ron Proctor's beginning and advanced summer workshops. Very well worth the time and the money to take those. And then I created my own 1-credit course at my home school. It became a recruiting ground to get students to create scenes, and they really enjoy it. It's really a lot of fun. It's not miserable. It's not toil. It's the course itself, and there's something about the process of learning Blender that really is fun, and some people really take to it. They get hooked on it and just get obsessed. So anyway, here's my class, spring semester. Every spring semester I offer it. I'll be offering it for the 5th time this coming spring. And this is the class. It was actually overfull. We have 30 workstations, and I had about 34 people. So here's the class in our workshop, or running through some of the activities. And you can see up here, this is the overflow table. These extra people wanted to take the course, and I said, well, you can if you bring your own laptop, and we set up an extra table. And so we got them through the course. So what is Blender? Let me just tell you a little bit about it. Blender is a 3D modeling and animation program. It has a game engine. This is a big, exciting thing for the young people, gamers. You can do physics simulations. There's a video editor. I call Blender the Swiss Army knife of software. You can do so much. If you don't ever want to do any modeling and animation, you don't have to. You can use it like Final Cut Pro and a lot of other software if you want to mix videos, and you can even mix audio. It's regularly updated. It's free. It's open source, and it's getting very good, very powerful. They just came out with a new version, and it's very, very impressive. Actually, if you subscribe to the Full Dome listserv, they're talking about what's going on in the commercial world with this kind of software, and it's getting more expensive. Licenses are getting more complicated, more restrictive, so Blender is a breath of fresh air that you don't have to worry about those details. There are also many tutorials available online. The only curse to learning Blender is the initial learning curve, but once you get over that, it's wonderful. So here's some scenes from the show. These are just Dome Masters. Last night, again, we showed the closed caption version. You can see the captions down at the bottom. It's a little tricky trying to get them dome corrected so they didn't look funny, but we did it. The HR diagram, my favorite part of the show right here. Basically, Dr. Kaler takes us on a night sky tour, and some of the, like here's Orion, Betelgeuse, and Rigel sort of jump out of the star field and take their places on the HR diagram. So has a nice sequence there on the HR diagram. This is actually a scene that we didn't render, but it was, some of the scenes are taken from NASA and ESO. They've got some wonderful footage in 4K, ready to go, ready to use for free. Here's another solar system formation sequence with captions. Our scary black hole up ahead. Another okay. All right, let me just pop through these real quick. There's other free software that I like to use and promote as well, and that'll be the end of my talk. So if there are any questions, I'll take those now. Questions? All right, thank you.
This is Amy Jo Proctor, and she's going to show us the full dome production on a shoestring. So take it away.
Hello, I'm Amy Jo Proctor. Some of you know me as the wife of Ron Proctor, but I do things too. I've been in production for over 10 years at the Ott Planetarium with Ron as my partner. And then he got laid off and went to Clark, and then I got laid off and went home. So what we did is we started Physics Foundry as a result of that so that we could continue producing good quality productions with educational content at a low price. And because we wanted to provide these at such a low cost, we needed to find a way we could produce them without buying all the software and all the expensive hardware. That's really the biggest one. So I'm just gonna, go through and show you some of the things that we used to make this possible so that were you to want to produce some of your own, you could use some of these tools. So primarily, for our first part, we used Google Docs. So Google Drive is really powerful at providing all of your spreadsheet needs, and it's free. And this is our format for scripting and laying out time code and everything for a show. And we just do it all in Google Drive, and that way we can share it between the two of us. It's automatically updated. It's awesome. We hate this one, but you can't get around how efficient Adobe Creative Cloud is, even though it does cost. It was $50 a month, which for one license isn't too bad. If you have to provide 50 for your students, that's going to be tough, but it's efficient, and for sound mixing, we find it's the only way we can really stand to do it. There's Audacity, there is the Blender renderer and encoder and stuff, but we find Premiere Pro easier to deal with for mixing sound. Listen, Fiverr. This is a new thing maybe to some of you. Has anybody heard of Fiverr? A few of you? So this is a place you can go online. It's fiverr.com. You go and you look for the talent you're looking for. So we went looking for voices, and we found Marcus Watson. And their original deal is they'll do a short, like 30-second advertising clip for you for $5. Well, they also have the ability to create their own projects off of what you've asked them to do, and we asked him to record our whole sound script, and that cost us $274 to do the entire audio, and he edited his own audio and sent it to us clean and pristine so we could just cut it and drop it in. So that's a big savings if you've ever had to deal with audio talent. And there's anything you could look for. We looked for American James Earl Jones, and we found Marcus Watson. So we wanted that deep, resonant voice. Music. So GLPA.com, has anybody heard of them? A few of you? We've talked about it in some of our workshops, GLPA. So GLPA is under $11 per song, and you have licensing that's really unrestrictive with that. Also Incompetech.com, his website's a little harder to navigate. It's all one guy named Kevin MacLeod, and he is amazing as well. And same deal, low cost per song. Basically, they want their names in the credits, so, and then $10 to $11 per song. It says $2.99, but that's for like nonprofit commercial type stuff. I feel like I'm talking really fast. Music provides your background and the feeling for the show, so you want to make sure that you've got good uplifting or tense sounds, and you can get that from them. Ken already talked about Blender a lot, and I do that all the time, so I'm not going to talk very much about Blender this time. I'm sporting my Blender lanyard, and I'll be happy to talk to you about Blender if you'd like to come to my booth. But Blender is very powerful, and you can do just about anything with it, like Ken was saying earlier. And we exclusively use Blender for all our animating, and have done since the last 10 years. This is a newer one for us, so Render Street. We had this laptop and a 2007 iMac, and that's it. And we were trying to render, and we're like, we're gonna do 1, 2, and 4K, and we're gonna get them all out at the same time. No, we weren't. So we went looking for options that wouldn't require us to go buy a stack of computers that we couldn't afford. And we found Render Street. It's a Blender rendering farm, and it was $50 a month, and you only pay for it when you need it. So for a group of students, this is a really cost-effective option, and it's fast. Like something that was gonna take 30 hours at our house on a single laptop, we'd have back in 30 minutes. It was really remarkably fast and efficient for the price. Okay. Sound effects. Everyone needs sound effects, right? So these are the two that we've found the most cost-effective and efficient at seeking through their websites. It's hard, some of these sound effect sites, it's like digging through gravel to find a dinosaur bone to find the sound you want. These two have relatively simple interfaces to use and about $5 per sound. So efficient and effective. And finally, Vimeo. So Vimeo is the most expensive piece of our thing. It's $200 a month, or $200 a year. But this is allowing us to provide that new pricing option where you can stream our show for $10 a day or $100 a month. It's because Vimeo already has the background all set up for you. So if you wanted to do something like this, you go and you sign up for the account and say, I need it to do this, this, and this. It just makes it go. So you have to provide all the proper formats, but it makes it so it's really easy for your customers, or if you just want to do it as a free release show or a clip or something that you want to share, Vimeo is really effective at doing that. How am I doing on time? Okay, perfect. Does anybody have any questions about these since I kind of flew through them? Awesome. Yes.
I have a different question. Okay. I don't know. I was just curious how you got into doing all the animation and all that.
It's actually a funny story. So I was a pre-med student at Weber State University, and I was looking for some sort of volunteer work to make me different because there's a million pre-med students at Weber State. So I talked to my favorite professor, Dr. Stacy Palin at Weber State. She ran the planetarium. I said, hey, can I volunteer at the planetarium? Because nobody's going to volunteer at a planetarium for med school. So I started working there, and I really, really loved it. And I met Ron, and we got along so well, we got married and started having kids and making shows. So that's me in a nutshell. But it was a big learning curve at first. I didn't start on Blender. I started on Adobe 3ds Max. And then we got $1 million earmark from NASA and wanted to buy a render farm. And Adobe said, you're going to need a license for every computer in that render farm. And Stacy said, go to Blender. Yes.
I guess for future reference, I think there are different like render farm options for licensing.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't necessarily have to have the full suite.
That was,
Unless it was a while ago.
it was back in 2004. So it was a while ago. And that was before the cloud happened and all the cool options happened. But
So through being a
started off as a student lecturer and just giving talks to the general public. And we got a full dome projector at that time and had no content. So Ron, being the graphics artist that he is, decided, I'm gonna see what I can do and put on this thing. And I started watching him and I'm like, that's fantastic, I wanna play too. So I started just kind of watching him in the background and picking things up, and then I started playing around with Adobe 3ds Max and went from there.
Which planetarium did you volunteer?
It was the Ott Planetarium at Weber State University in Ogden, Utah. Anyone else? Awesome, we'll keep ourselves on time. Oh, no problem. Basically, I just have logos of what we use. So we use Google Drive exclusively for all our scripting and time coding. And this is our general layout if you're interested in that at all. And then Adobe Creative Cloud for sound editing is basically what we use that for. And Ron used it a little bit for Illustrator because if you watch our show at the booth, there's some pretty cool illustrations of cultural astronomy in there. Drew those. Then did you get Fiverr? So Fiverr is a talent place where you can go and pay $5 for a short amount of their skills. And we found our narrator through Fiverr.com. You can search for what you need. They do other things too, like you can have them make you a logo or a business card or something. But did you get Jewel Beat? Okay, we caught you up. Uh-huh. I was tying questions in. It's okay. Okay, anyone else? I'm gonna scoot over and make way for the next person then. Thank you.
We have Patrick Durrell of Youngstown State University, and he's going to be talking about CosmoQuest.
How's it going, eh? Just checking the mic. Sorry, I'm a little not used to using mics because I've got a loud voice already, so I'm afraid you're going to be buried under a barrage of sound. So, yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about a sort of a rebuild of a project that we're doing as part of the large CosmoQuest virtual research facility. And that is a project to develop materials, free materials that can be used by planetarians, particularly those with full dome capabilities. But we're not leaving out people who don't have full dome yet and have nice PowerPoint-style projectors. This is all in collaboration with my partners in crime, many of whom are in this room. Say hello, everybody. As well as our fearless leader, Dr. Pamela Gay at Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville, and collaborators on the West Coast who are involved with the Science on a Sphere projects. The idea is, well, what are we going to be doing? Because we're on the sort of starting on a new project here. What CosmoQuest is, it's actually an online, it's at just cosmoquest.org. It's a virtual research facility that was started about 4.5 years ago. And its mission is, well, it's kind of tough to put it all into just a few words. It's a variety of options to get people interested, not only interested in astronomy, but to get people involved in astronomy. And there's a great many different pieces to it. And you know, what I'll be mostly focusing on is the planetarium aspect of it. But really the idea, discover, explore, learn through a variety of different things, whether it's podcasts or classroom materials. But again, a central part of it is not just telling people about science, but to get everyday people actively involved in something called citizen science. Just to show you how big this is, we recently, as CosmoQuest, our entire group received $11.5 million over 5 years as part of a collaborative agreement. And these are all the primary partners. There's a lot of people involved in CosmoQuest in a variety of things. I've highlighted the ones that are involved from the point of view of sort of the planetarium things, including De Anza College, Lawrence Hall of Science, and our group here at YSU. But again, a lot of mission and facility partners, community partners, so projects are going to be doing over the next 5 years involve a lot of these people, and more are coming on board. This slide is already a few months old, but just to give you an idea of how involved this project is. Now, what is CosmoQuest? Well, CosmoQuest, like I said, has been around for a few years, but the whole idea was, well, we wanted to do this work, this collaboration with NASA to sort of get the word out, to actually do a whole variety of things. So not just focus on one thing, but to try and do a lot of things. And these are all of the different parts of CosmoQuest. Our part is down here in the bottom right, but basically the idea, just running through quickly some of these citizen science portals. Okay, one of the most important things about CosmoQuest is getting people involved in what's called citizen science. These would be online science projects, actual research projects developed by researchers in planetary science and astrophysics, so that people can go online. I mean, if you're familiar with Galaxy Zoo or programs like that, it's in that style of things. So we call these citizen science. And the idea of over the next 5 years is to develop about a dozen of these different projects that people who are interested in astronomy can go online with a little bit of training, go and actually do meaningful things that will help astronomical research. But us, planetarium content, video and images, which is something we're going to be starting up, but we, astronomy podcasts. A lot of people in the group are me not so much, but are very good at social media. Okay. Online astronomy classes, we're re-kickstarting Cosmo Academy so people can take short online courses. There's a one coming up soon on gravitational waves that they're going to be doing. Teacher resources, so there's a number of people involved who are getting lesson plans to get, out into the K-12 community to get students involved. There's going to be funding for science fair projects, so they're not the science fair projects you always hear about where you ask mom and dad the night before what's going on. Funding to get researchers to make a citizen science project to get everybody involved. But our part of it is down here, again, on the right, planetarium content. And the idea is, okay, well, how do we get the word out? I mean, NASA does a lot of incredible things. We're going to be doing lots of interesting research through CosmoQuest. How do we let people know about what we're doing? How do we get people involved? And this is where the planetarium thing comes in. Now, right now, we only have a few of the citizen science projects or portals. We use them interchangeably. But an example is one called Asteroid Mappers. Now, I'm not a planetary scientist myself, but the idea is that people can go online and do, cataloging craters from actual NASA data, in this case from Vesta, okay, from the Dawn spacecraft. And, the basic idea is, people can go online, do a tutorial, actually carry out the activity, that material is saved. The scientists who are actually involved in the project can actually make use of this and, actual publishable research to come out of all of these things. But as part of that is, well, how do we tell people about asteroid mappers? What are people doing? How are they doing it? And the idea is to make some short full dome videos related to what people are doing. And just as an idea of some of the kinds of projects, these are some of the ones that have been going on and some that are about to start. Earth mappers using Earth mapping data. Dark Energy Explorer is one that is a project involved with the Hobby Abbey Telescope down in Texas to explore dark energy by studying distant galaxies. And later this year, there's going to be a call for more proposals. Other scientists out there who have research projects that they'd like to get citizens involved in doing. We'll actually have a little bit of a competition, and then part members of our group will sort of develop materials to work with them. And part of that includes getting the word out on what they're doing through planetarium material. So our part is the projected science group. A lot of folks, look at that smiling face. Okay, those of you who know Toshi and Yolanda over on the West Coast, they're involved with science on a sphere, because we're not limiting ourselves to just full dome, as what we're seeing a lot of at this conference, but also science on the sphere installations. And some of the people, we don't have recent pictures for everybody, but some of the crazed folks at the Ward Beecher Planetarium, again, sitting in the row, these, yes, okay. Myself, Kurt, we just hired Alexa a month and a half ago, and Annie as well. People are going to be getting involved in the production and camera work. The good thing about having a little bit of money from a NASA grant is we have money to, as was just brought up, getting some of the equipment, because we have computers that aren't going to do the job, because we're like, yeah, we want to do 4K. Sure you do, okay? And the idea was getting new workstations, new equipment, small render farms, and dealing with some of the very same issues about I'm a scientist. I'm not used to dealing with software vendors. That's not my game. And including another scientist, John Feldmeyer, and Tiffany as well. These are all people who are involved at some level in what things that we're going to be doing. And of course, external consultants, some of these names you know, Susan in particular, Ryan Wyatt, are also people that we'll be consulting with to help direct things as we go through. Now, our main goals of the project is we're just sort of 3/4 the way in our first year. We're just getting ourselves going, so this is what we're planning on doing, is enhancing an online repository of images that we call Science on the Half Sphere, which has been going for the past few years. We actually have full dome images of telescopes on Mauna Kea, as well as our first full dome program that we created at YSU. It's part of this collaboration called Cosmic Castaways, a program that doesn't deal with black holes or solar system objects, because we've seen a lot of that, but a show about intergalactic stars or orphan stars that get run out of galaxies due to gravity. But the idea is, with the new equipment we're buying, is to acquire new full dome images. We've used SLRs, but we now have an Freedom 360 unit to start doing some more video. Okay. A live action video with that, including interviews with people. One of the things we sometimes forget when we see all these spacecraft and stuff is that science is done by people. And we want to get that across to people. Science is done by people, not just by machines. A lot of people analyzing these things. New 2D, 3D animations and data visualizations. These are things that Alexa and Annie are going to be helping out with as we go forward. But the idea is to make free creative content, so if you want to use them in your own shows, you can go ahead and do so. This website's probably going to be changing, but this is the current state of Science on the Half Sphere project. And again, the first two projects are images that I had as part of a National Science Foundation grant 4 years ago, images that anybody can go ahead and use in their own programs, as well as Cosmic Castaways. As for voice talent, we had the wonderful Dr. Pamela Gay doing voiceover work, so I don't know why that slides back in there. But even new programmers, we're actually working on a program, some Hubble telescope data that we have acquired, and I'm analyzing when I'm not here, to develop new full dome programs related to some of the science that we're doing, including looking at Hubble images of the outskirts of the spiral galaxy M101. So that's also in development work that's being led by Dr. John Feldmeyer at Youngstown State University. Okay? And I will just simply put up some of the things. This is one of our new images that we're going to be putting online shortly. Again, the idea is we're going to enhance Science on the Half Sphere with lots more images, including images. We're hoping to start doing some quick turnaround images, like from NASA press releases. People will say, oh, well, we'd like to get, are there any full dome images about, someone asked Osiris Rex. Well, once we get ourselves going, we'd like to actually, after a few days, say, here. So there's a whole lot of things that we're hoping to get doing, and we look forward to having more stuff for you in the coming years. Thank you very much.
Do we have any questions? Yes.
Yes. Well, we started off, we had those initial resources up a few years ago, but now with this new grant, we're like, okay, we want to take Science of the Half Sphere to the next level. So we're going to build the repository of many more images, full dome shorts, trailers. All these citizen science projects we're going to have like 4 or 5 minute trailers that will be freely available. So if someone wants to show, here's something about asteroid mappers, well, there's going to be a 4 or 5 minute video, totally narrated, totally available, totally free in all those formats, so that people can find out that, here's an interesting little project, and maybe encourage some of your people who go to the planetariums to actually, hey, I can do that, and actually get involved. So the idea is, it's not just telling you about asteroids, it's in a short 4 minute thing, but to tell people how science is done, what are scientists doing, and how you can get involved. And each of the little citizen science portals that we're involved with are going to have short trailers. So that is part of what's going on.
We have about 30 more seconds. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Now, next up, we have Nick Anderson. He's from Cleveland, sorry. And he likes long walks on the beach. He asked me to say that.
All right, good morning, everybody. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about some of the exhibits we have planned at the Lake Erie Nature and Science Center. So we're just out on the west side of Cleveland here. But you might know that the last couple years we've kind of gone through a pretty big transformation, and just made sense for us to at least kind of split that up into a series of phases. And a key milestone in that was the second phase, where we renovated the Shealy Planetarium. So we just reopened in June of 2014. But now we're currently in the third phase, which is just a lot of general improvements to our facility and then adding new exhibits. But we're a small nonprofit, so we don't really have a portion of our budget that's allocated to developing or maintaining new exhibits. So we really just had to seek funding elsewhere. And usually when we do that, a lot of what we look to are family foundations, and that can require a lot of research because they all have their different funding priorities. And you have to be able to kind of sell yourself to their representatives. And it's just important to remember that their priorities can change, and even the representatives too. So you kind of have to be aware of that. But if we don't go there, we also get grants from the state sometimes, and they can be strict too regarding the use of the funds. If we don't do that, then we have a lot of private donors we look to too. So we try to communicate regularly with them, and they usually want something that's eye-catching, but also something that's meaningful. And sometimes they respond well to incentives too. So for people that donate more than $50,000 for a project, we include their names on it. So that's one way we can convince them to help us out. But we also have a loyal customer base. So a lot of local families that are kind of like cheerleaders for us. So they use their reputation within the community to kind of influence others and convince some other people to give us a little bit of money to help out. But the Hershey Foundation there, they're a foundation around Cleveland that's really interested in promoting the growth and development of kids within Northeast Ohio. And they gave us $10,000 specifically for space science exhibits. So that's most of what we'll talk about here today. Now, we don't have our own exhibit department, so usually we have to contract or purchase exhibits. And we've been working closely with some local artists. And one of the first things we wanted to make, we have a wall right by the entrance of the planetarium where we were going to do a big mural of the Milky Way. And at first we were thinking like an artistic rendition of it. And then we decided to opt for just like a Hubble image of the Andromeda galaxy. And we figured, it's pleasing to the eye, but also, it gives us a chance to tell people that we live inside the Milky Way and we've never actually ventured far enough to view it from the outside. So that's what we haven't done that yet, but that's in the works. And along that wall, we're going to have like 12 different interesting facts that are going to kind of stand off from the wall there. And we try to make them fun and accessible because most of who we serve are families with young children. And so we add a lot of analogies, kid-friendly images, and placement is really important there too. So up at the top of the wall, we're putting a lot more of the abstract concepts. And as we get lower down, we're doing more solar system facts that a lot of the kids that we come into our programs all the time can relate to. And then lower down, what we're envisioning for the future is maybe adding some rocks that kids can actually touch. So, like for example, we were thinking maybe basalt, and we can talk about the lunar Mario with that. So that's going to be one of the walls. Now, right next to that, we're going to have a constellation wall too. And at the very top of that, we're going to do a couple of the prominent seasonal constellations. So we had some that were easy choices. Fall kind of threw us for a loop. Originally, we were thinking right away our gut instinct was Pegasus. But our management kind of wanted to keep things consistent because we were pointing out some bright stars in a lot of the other constellations and other objects. And so then we started thinking Taurus, because then we could point out Aldebaran and the Pleiades, but at the same time, it's right next to Orion. So we're not really sure how we feel about that. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, if anybody has an opinion there. But underneath the seasonal constellations, we're going to have actually a manipulative section. So kids can actually use magnetic stars to kind of recreate the patterns of Big Dipper, Little Dipper, Cassiopeia, or they can just make their own constellations too, which is pretty fun. But one of the exhibits I'm really looking forward to, I think a lot of you guys are probably familiar with this, some of you might have it in your own facility, is NASA ViewSpace. And really what's appealing about that is that it's free to planetariums, sort of. So you have to have the hardware for it. If you don't, it could cost you a couple $1,000s. Plus there's like a really small annual fee, and that's really just for NASA to cover their software costs. But it has high-res images, beautiful animations, music, and like the latest updates. It's self-updating, so you don't really have to mess around with it. It has a continuous loop of up to like 6 hours, so it can actually lengthen a lot of the time your visitors spend browsing your exhibits, which is nice. And there's even a little option there to recognize those donors that provide the money for it. And it was a perfect fit for us because we have this little dark corner in our exhibit hall that's been vacant for a really long time, and we just felt like it was a perfect addition to that. So really looking forward to that. But there are other things that we're working on that aren't strictly space science. So we've been working with a partnership with Ohio Sea Grant and some of the local schools in Bay Village to create these outdoor kiosks to educate the public on climate change. And this is really good for our relationship with Ohio Sea Grant because they provide us a lot of professional support, but this also expands their reach and credibility because you might know they have the one facility out there like on the islands around Put-in Bay, but this is really one of the chances for them to actually take these kiosks elsewhere. So that's a neat one. But we have a lot of other cool exhibits. This is actually one that we already have in our facility. So it's an augmented reality sandbox. It's a real sandbox so kids can actually move around the sand themselves. And it has like a color elevation map. It changes in real time, has like contour lines and simulated water. And so it's really useful for teaching watershed science. It'd be cool to use it for field trips, but I think we're going to use it for small groups just because you have a limited space around it and all the kids are going to want to put their hands in that sandbox. And we also have, we have a wildlife rehabilitation facility, so we have a lot of wildlife exhibits in the works too. So we want to have a really nice mural of like a picturesque forest scene with as many like touchable 3D elements as possible for the little kids to be hands-on. So that could be like realistic tree holes with animals living inside them, paw prints, and even we're thinking rocks that you can lift up and reveal creatures living underneath them. And there's a couple of cool educational photo ops we're going to have too, where kids can actually compare their wingspan to some of the native birds and also compare their height to some of the record lengths of fish that are actually found in Lake Erie. So it'll be pretty neat. We have some temporary kind of versions of those right now, but the one is going to be like adhered to the wall, and they're going to be a little bit more permanent and look a little bit better. So that's a little bit of what we have in store. We have a lot of other ideas that are still on the back burner. We have some proposals pending for money, so hopefully those work out. But if not, we're going to continue to seek funding, and hopefully at least the things we have in plan so far will kind of make the visitor experience a little more enjoyable. That's really about it. Any question?
Do we have any questions? I saw, yeah.
Not really a question, but I wanted to let you know on the view space, they're so great to work with. Our kiosk is right outside our door. You can actually have a screen with your schedule on it for the day, and you can have images. You just put the right name on them, and they'll run your own static images in between the loops.
Awesome. I feel like a lot of times we have a lot of visitors running around, and they have no idea that we even have shows going on or what our schedule is, so that would be perfect.
Just talk to them when you set it up. They're really nice.
Cool. Nice.
There was somebody over here. Did somebody, yes?
Also at the view spaces, they've been migrating over to more of a web-based platform, so you don't have to buy that software, the media software viewer, which you can still do that if you want, but the other way, you don't have to pay for it.
Nice. You guys are making it seem like it was a good decision then.
Okay.
So you guys have some great ideas for your exhibits. Do you have, how do you brainstorm for these ideas?
Takes a lot of time, and we've had countless sessions, and the tough thing is that we don't always get together with the artists, and sometimes they really want to have their own take on it, and they kind of want to take our ideas and run with it, but then again, they'll do all this work, and then we have to fact check everything, and then we make our adjustments, and then they're getting frustrated because then they think the whole scope is changing. It's not really the scope changing, we're just changing little details, so it takes a long time. So I think the Milky Way wall alone, that was one of the longest ones that, took weeks. We actually just, like, the other week, I think, sent our sort of final draft, but again, like things like the fall constellation, we're still not entirely sure on. So, but, if we want to have these things as, exhibits, we want to make sure that they're exactly what we want before we put them out there. So it's worth the time and effort, but yeah, it does take a little while.
Okay, any other questions? All right, we are all done for this session, for this paper session, so thank you very much for coming and enjoy the rest of your day.